Okay, so before we start, just want to show you guys, this is my stomach bloated. This is pain. No pain, no gain, but like definitely not the same as this because I should be hench. Imagine bloating this bad and it's just filled with barbed wire, burning, daggers, horrible, horrible, heavy pelvic sensation. You look 3 to 4 months pregnant, and I've already been pregnant, and it, you know, I don't need to be reminded of how I used to look when I was pregnant. No, thank you. Okay, so today's video is going to be a little bit more different than usual. So grab yourself some painkillers, morphine, the lot, hot water bowls, your TENS machine, anything to get you comfy for today's video, because we are going to get up close and personal with my uterus. So for those that don't know, it is Endometriosis Awareness Month next month in March, and today's video is going to be kind of opening up that conversation on my side of the disease. Is that the right word? I don't know. Well, disease it is a disease. So I'm just going to open up a bit of a conversation about it now, just because, as you can see by the title of this video, it is about a letter I've received 5 months, yes, 5 months after getting a scan last year. And I didn't want to wait any longer to do this video because I'm actually going to be Googling what some of the terminology means, because I've only been sent a letter and not been able to speak to anyone about what it all means. If it's all rambled and doesn't make much sense, it's because I'm in agony and it is really hard to sit here right now. So hope you enjoy the video.
From my desk at the moment, but if you leave your name, telephone number, hospital number or date of birth clearly, I will get back to you.
Hi, it's Sarah Carney. I'm just calling to check about my MRI scan that I got about 2 weeks ago. Hi, it's Sarah Carney again. Got a pelvic MRI scan about 4 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, 4 months ago.
But if you leave your name, telephone number, I will get back to you, although this may not be the same day.
So I have suspected endometriosis, which means it hasn't been surgically diagnosed. Surgery is the only way you can diagnose endometriosis properly, and also to see how and where it's grown, and well, how much it's grown and where. More than 1 in 10 people have endometriosis. Endometriosis is a full body disease. On average, it takes 7 to 10 years worldwide for someone to be diagnosed with endometriosis, and more than often people are left for years and years and years being told it's in the head, painful periods are normal, or it's just your mental health causing this pain and problems. A lot of people don't know they have it. Obviously, it varies in everyone. It's not a one size fits all. And endometriosis itself is very, very similar tissue that grows in the lining of the womb, which is called the endometrium, and the endometrium actually breaks down and bleeds and is expelled through the vagina during a period. So with endometriosis, since that's so similar to the tissue, it acts in the same way, and it creates its own hormones, and it will grow and then it will break down and bleed. However, it has nowhere to actually escape the body, so it just creates lots of growth and lots of lesions, and it will grow anywhere in the body. So your lungs, your eyes, your brain, your diaphragm, obviously your pelvis is the most known place it will grow. Your ovaries, your bladder, your kidney, anywhere you think it will grow. Also the spleen. Now I read the other day that it has actually been found in the spleen. Nerves, anywhere it can grow in between your organs and also penetrate them, and it just causes and wreaks so much havoc in a patient's body. When it has grown and been left for so long, it can start gluing organs together and pulling on organs and just destroying organs, and it destroys a lot of people's quality of life, and it has for me. The thing is though, the system for endometriosis, the healthcare system, is diabolical. It is awful. It was already terrible before lockdown, before COVID-19 was an actual thing. It was broken, and we need to expose it more, and we need to talk about it more, and we need to correct it, because I can't be 26 years old and someone who is in their 50s have said the system has not changed. It's horrible when I see it, and it's horrible to know nothing has practically changed. So there's more to it, which I will talk about in another video. It's just this, I'm kind of skipping that just to get to my letter, because I don't want it to be too long or too much to take in. because the disease itself is horrible and it's a painful disease to live with. Like, I am in pain every single day of my life. Like, I'm not in pain. That's what chronic pain is, and that's what chronic illness is. So that's as much as I can think of saying about the disease itself. I'm going to be talking about my letter, which is when I had a pelvic MRI scan, which is quite crucial to have for the journey and diagnosis of endometriosis. I just want to quickly say to everyone, scans don't actually rule out endometriosis. So if you're on the process of getting a diagnosis, just like I am, that's not the end of anyone's journey. I just want to say that, because a scan does not prove it's not endometriosis. It can only help detect. It can only help, okay? If you're not ill yourself with endometriosis, just be a bit mindful to people who you might know who are, or anyone you come across on the internet. If they disclose they've had a scan and nothing showed up, please don't think that is the end of it. More times than often it doesn't actually show anything, but when someone's gone in for a surgery, it's actually they're riddled with the disease. So I'll be talking a lot more about the disease, and especially my journey and experience, in so many more videos. I've got so much to talk about on my channel. I do talk about it a lot on my Instagram, but I just kind of wanted to bring it onto YouTube because, you know, it shouldn't just be limited to one platform, especially when I'm a small content creator. So let's just get this letter and Google some shit, you know? So I hope this all makes sense, what I've just been saying. I feel like it's all over the place because I am all over the place today. I am currently in about 8 out of 10 pain, which to a normal, healthy person would be like a 16 out of 20. You would be on the floor, like crying your eyes out if you didn't live with chronic pain. This is a copy of the results that I received, which was actually 10 days ago. I know it's taken me like a while to do this because my daughter was ill for one, and I've just had the most excruciating flare up for the past week and a half with such bad fatigue. Looking after a toddler at the same time, it's not ideal. So I actually got the scan in September 2020, so 5 months ago. Yes, 5 months ago. It is horrible when I say that out loud, because it's like, what took someone 5 months to tell somebody about their health situation is disgusting, and it is so unforgivable, and just, I can't even explain the mental side to having to cope 5 months on top of physical pain and flare-ups and symptoms to just wonder what has happened with the scan results. Do you get what I mean? Like, it's so unforgivable. And I was just constantly told, oh yeah, the gynaecologist has it, she's written up the notes, she'll get back to you. And she never did. She literally never did. And it was starting to really piss me off, if I'm honest. Of course, we're in a pandemic, but that does not mean you can just sit there with your health that has been really bad for so long, and it's just horrible that the disease doesn't even like kill you in a sense. It's just living in a prison in hell. And just knowing someone has the results of your scan that you had 3, 4, coming up to 5 months ago at the time was just horrible. But it gets to the point where people need to be held accountable. I get it if you feel like, well, we're in a pandemic, so you just have to wait it out. It's like, no, if you were ill, you would not think the same. You just wouldn't. And it makes you feel a bit guilty for thinking, I need my results, because it makes you sound a bit spoiled and a bit entitled, but it doesn't. At the end of the day, if you want your results and you want to know what is going on in your own body, you should know. You don't want the results to come back and be like, yeah, half of your uterus is missing, and you're just like, well, it's been 5 months. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, the other thing that's really annoyed me about the letter is it was actually typed on the 4th of February, because I got this on the 6th of February, because I remember thinking, what the fuck, that was 2 days ago. So the MRI was arranged previously, more like 5 months ago. And I've obviously been referred to my specialist regarding the endometriosis. So I have a normal size uterus, and there's no features of endometriosis, which is endo's horrible sister disease. It is super common for people who have endo to have adenomyosis. Next, the letter says, in the posterior lower part of the uterus, there was a plaque tissue suspicious of endometriosis. This is the part that has really got me. Now, what's really weird is I had a doctor's appointment, like the first kind of gynaecologist related one, in the doctor's, not in the gynaecologist. And she did a pelvic exam, which was so painful. God, just thinking about it is just horrible. It was so painful. Anyway, so she said she could see like little black dots in the opening of my cervix, so which is obviously like my birth canal and all that jazz going up into my uterus. And my partner was there and we were just like, what? Like, what does that mean? And at first she said, do I take birth control? And I was like, no, I've not taken it for like a year. And she said it's mainly the combined birth pill that she sees this kind of thing form in people's cervixes. Anyway, so I haven't taken that like just ever really, and nor was I taking it near that time. So she was like, oh, well, it could be cancer. And I was like, okay. So anyway, I ended up Googling so much about what it could be. And from the little corners of the internet, when I really try to bog down what I'm trying to Google, I did find reports of endometriosis growing in the opening of people's uterus and obviously the vagina. So little specks of blackness will grow. And I just started to think, well, that's probably what it is then, because she saw something which is obviously not normal. She even said it wasn't a normal looking thing in my cervix. And she did an emergency referral to the gynaecologist, who was actually the gynaecologist who ended up being my gynaecologist. And she did an exam and she said everything looked fine. This was like within 2 days, by the way. So I was like, well, how come there's two? So I would not be surprised if this posterior lower part of my uterus, this plaque tissue, has anything to do with that, which is why I'm going to be Googling it in this video. So then my gynecologist reports that my left ovary showed physiological cysts and there was a hemorrhagic cyst, which would be within the physiological limits for my like a person of my age. And so there's no free fluid in the pelvis, normal bladder and normal looking rectum, and no other lesions were noted. From a outside point of view, like if you didn't know much about endo, you would think, obviously with the suspicion of endometriosis from the plaque tissue, you would be like, yeah, it's probably something there. And you might just think that's it, right? Because everything else seems dandy. However, if you felt the pain that I do, and you saw the flare-ups that I go through, and the absolute mental torment, never mind physical torment of pain that I go through, you would just think you feel like something needed to be a lot more extreme on those scans. And that is how messed up the disease is, because the amount of pain as a patient can feel with something like endometriosis, and then their scans are saying nothing there, it makes you feel insane. And a lot of patients are gaslighted and are told that it's just in their head. Now, obviously, some of you might be like, well, why are you Googling it? Like, you're not supposed to Google crap. But unfortunately, when it comes to something like endometriosis, it is the only way you're going to know anything about endo and really know how to advocate for yourself. I'm not going to lie, I Googled so much about my symptoms before anyone ever said the word endometriosis to me, and that is, I found out via Google, because Google actually understood my symptoms and what I was trying to like find out. And I have also read that 67% of diagnosed patients found out by the internet. Of course, the internet can't diagnose you, but it can obviously point you in a direction that really reflects and mirrors your current situation. So yeah, I'm going to Google a few bits off this letter, because as I said, I haven't had a phone call, so I've not been able to speak to somebody. Let's Google this on my laptop. Let's just type in plaque tissue. So let's just type in uterus and see what comes up. Okay, so plaque tissue uterus. Let's see. Okay, so benign uterine growths, endometriosis, cervical endometriosis, genes and uterine fibroids, MRI imaging of endometriosis, MRI detection of endo. Wow, okay. And these are all links I have never seen in my life because I've never Googled plaque tissue. This is just uterus, by the way, and this is what's coming up. I haven't specified endometriosis for this. MRI findings in deep infiltrating endometriosis. Wow. I mean, I'm just getting emotional now because just knowing it has been seen or suspected on a simple MRI scan after all this time, it just makes me feel like a lot less insane. Try not to cry because I'm liking my makeup day. How do you put that in words when you have waited for some sort of proof or evidence or confirmation that it's not just, we don't know what's wrong with you, or like all the gaslighting and all the horrible stuff I've experienced, and there is Google's telling me more than a letter for my results is. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to just Google plaque tissue endometriosis and see if pretty much the same links come up. I'm not going to go on all the links, of course, because obviously if endometriosis is coming up with a simple Google search, it obviously kind of just confirms pretty much as it sounds crazy that you're just kind of confirming things off Google. So I'm just going to go on this radiology assistant website and just kind of give you guys and myself a bit of an idea of what plaque tissue means in terms of endometriosis. So on this part here, it says on MRI, the endo lesions are most often not visible when they're superficial because they're tiny and flat and so therefore undetectable. Only when they exceed 5 millimeters or when they appear as hemorrhagic, why can't I say that word? Cysts, that they show a certain kind of like detection. So neither transvaginal ultrasound or MRI sufficiently sensitive to screen for these endometriotic plaques. So there's that term again. So I think interchangeably the plaque just means the endo growth, which I don't think I knew. So yeah, there is superficial endometriosis and deep infiltrating endometriosis, which is DIE, which is kind of a bit morbid, So deep infiltrating endo tends to mean the lesions, so the endo growth has grown quite deeply into organs, whereas superficial endo tends to be on the surface and it presents as flat and small, and it is usually hard to see, which is why a lot of people will come out of surgery as well and they're told they don't have endo, and that's why scans don't show anything, because it is actually very hard to see if you haven't been trained really, really extensively to see it with a naked eye especially. So really, I might have more growth elsewhere. This is obviously enough for it to show on a scan, which I'm still kind of like, whew, it's just kind of hard to take in a sense. So because what's weird as well is on my left ovary, there was a hemorrhagic cyst. Let's Google what is a hemorrhagic cyst. So it's basically a mass formed because of occurrence of bleeding into a cyst. Cysts, if you have a uterus, are very, very natural and they just grow, but they can become problems quite fast, and also without knowing you have a problematic cyst. This is obviously right now they reported on my left ovary. So who knows what's going on my left side. All of my pain is mainly focused on the right for me. So to see something like that about my left ovary is like, huh. Now, what's a funny coincidence is if you go back on that radiologist assistant's website, they say if the endo growth exceeds 5 millimeters or when they appear as hemorrhagic cysts, that is when obviously endo growth is actually detected on a scan. So really, with my gynaecologist saying it's quite normal for someone of my age to have these type of cysts, which it actually can be, also doesn't really help when you've got suspected endometriosis, because if the endo growth can appear to look like that, then it very well might not be a cyst at all. It could actually be growth, which kind of makes it a little bit more alarming, because that means the growth is quite prominent and quite intense. So that's all in a day's worth of finding out things about endo, or, you know, when you're ill. So obviously my right ovary apparently has benign follicles and cysts. So right now with my scans, it's like I just need someone to open me up, because then you can actually see what is really going on. The sad thing is, in March 2020, when I had my first ever gynecologist appointment about endometriosis, that was with my gynecologist like team member, so it wasn't even with her, and she was the only person who mentioned the word endometriosis to me after seeing like a dozen doctors beforehand for about 6 months trying to find out what is wrong with my body. If anything, I'd only just learnt about what endometriosis was, I think like a month or two before, and that was from Google. In the appointment, I knew straight away that I wanted to be referred to a specialist, and I also wanted a pelvic MRI scan, because nobody, since I first started going to doctors in like September the year before that, so that was 2019, nobody had recommended or suggested a pelvic MRI, and everyone was looking everywhere else but my pelvis, and yet all of my reports, they all report, because I reported it, pelvic pain, pelvic pain, pelvic pain. Nobody just... Anyway, so the doctor lady, she basically was telling me that I need to go on birth control for 3 months non-stop, and then at the end to come off it and see if I have a period, and if I did, if my symptoms came back, and if also during that trial, if my symptoms also came through from the birth control. I already knew I didn't want birth control whatsoever. I just didn't want to be on it. Yeah, I was very determined, like really determined to get her to ask the consultant, which is my actual gynecologist, to see if I could get a referral, because I just thought, well, if you're going to make me wait 3 months, why can't I have a referral at the same time? Because I am someone who'd rather actually see the root cause and know what is causing my problems, rather than just throw birth control at you and you can just see and sit and wait. And I think that's awful, like really awful. So she went off, and she came back and she said, I'm not allowed it at all, the scan or the referral. That was just horrible to just hear those words, because it's just like, well, a scan of all things, can't you just refer someone for a scan? So then fast forward through the whole of summer of that year, I ended up having a phone call in, I think, August, the very end of August. And it was my actual gynecologist. And she'd asked, did you take the birth control? And I was like, nope. And I told her how much worse my symptoms and quality of life had deteriorated like mad. Like, I've had some of the worst flare-ups during the summer of 2020. So she just said, so what do you want to do next? And I just thought, this should just be the question just asked if the patient has learned a lot already. Like, because if I hadn't already learned that birth control isn't actually the answer to endometriosis in some respect, or if the patient just doesn't want it, you know, there should be other options. I obviously just said, I know what specialist I want to see, and I would like a pelvic MRI scan too. The scan of all things, when you are dealing with a female born patient and they have pelvic problems, pelvic pain is actually like one of the top problems and conditions in people assigned female at birth, how can a pelvic MRI scan not be one of the first things you kind of, request for? Whether or not the patient knows it, you, as doctors, the doctors, gynecologists, everyone I've spoken to, nobody suggested a pelvic MRI scan. And I think that is just horrific. Yeah, so I got my referral and that was in September. So I got a phone call from the MRI department and they asked, do you want a scan like the next day or two after that phone call? And I was like, hell yeah, like, yes, please. The people who did it was so lovely. Like the guys who did it was so lovely. And, I could have asked how long do they think it might be, but I just assumed it would only be 4 odd weeks. Yeah, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible because, it's the NHS. You can't give them too much pressure, of course, and we're already in COVID, like a pandemic, and the UK is just handling it really awfully. However, when you live with chronic pain and you are ill, you just need answers. The scans don't always show endo, so it's so horrible in your head because you just think, well, if nothing shows, then it looks like there's nothing wrong with me. Then I also just thought, well, if there is something on that scan, my health is being withheld from me. It was just all these thoughts on top of being chronically ill and in a lot of pain every single day when I wake up, when I go to sleep. You've got to be really strong-minded, and it would hit me a lot just thinking, where's my scans and where's my results? And so anyway, excuse me, and a pelvic MRI is one of those things where a lot of people's journeys stop and end because a scan has said there's nothing there, when really scans don't actually prove or rule out endometriosis. It's just not viable. And there's plenty of people out there who have had scans and the door has just been shut on their face because nothing showed up. And we need to change that narrative, and we need to educate people, and that is precisely what this video is for. I just didn't Google anything on this because I wanted to kind of do more of a raw, kind of give you a feel of what it's like when you live with a chronic illness that is so complex, or you're suspected to have it and you're not getting answers where you need them, so you can only turn to Google, can't you? I just wanted to kind of put this out there so anyone on YouTube or anyone watching can follow my journey, because this is not the start. I mean, it's a start. The start was about 10 years ago, and then there's another start, and now this is another start. But again, more videos about my situation will come out. More discussions, more education. I'm going to have to wrap it up. Ironically, I am in excruciating pain. So yeah, I hope this has kind of educated people a little bit more, and anyone who's been following me on Instagram, you can now see my current situation, because I do talk a lot about my personal, ups and downs with this disease. And obviously it's painful, not physically, but mentally and emotionally. And yeah. So I am in so much pain right now. So I'm going to have to really wrap this up. I really enjoyed today's video in a non-sick, morbid way. I definitely need to lie down and just find some relief somehow. So I hope in a weird way you did enjoy today's video. Please don't forget to leave this video a big thumbs up, and also comment down below anything. You can ask me anything you want. I don't mind answering anything whatsoever. I'm totally open about everything. If you do want to message me something a little bit more private, you can do so on my Instagram, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, just don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye! Come on, girl. Oh, God. That is not nice.